Welcome to the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. Figure that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. They did it. They did it. They did it. Flyers did it, guys. They made it into the playoffs. I woke up this morning, and it wasn't like I thought it was a dream, right? It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. No. I woke up this morning, and I was exhausted. I got home, I think, around midnight. I woke up bright and early, and I thought to myself, did that really happen? And I remember, yeah, it happened. Flyers made the playoffs. They got it done against Carolina. It wasn't always the prettiest game. It isn't one that's going to go down in the annals of time as being a truly dominant or in any way, shape, or form incredible performance, but it was a good enough performance against a, let's call it a shorthanded Carolina Hurricanes team. And they got the job done. And now, tonight, Game 82 against Montreal means nothing. I mean, the only thing that really matters here is make sure whoever's in the lineup gets in and out healthy. And otherwise, tonight's game doesn't matter. And it's been a long time since the Flyers have been in a position to say Game 82 doesn't matter for good reason. Now, usually, we're having a conversation about, all right, where are we at on the lottery odds? If the Flyers lose this game today, where do they move to number 8 in the draft lottery? No. Today, we're having the conversation about this game doesn't matter because they've locked in that third spot in the Metropolitan Division. They have a date coming up with Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang and Kevin Hayes. They got that lined up this weekend and into next week. And they did it in some of the most amazing ways you could imagine. And we'll talk about how they got here and what happened last night and what it meant to those players, but I will even argue what it meant to those players and to those fans, to everyone in attendance and to those who are watching around the world. It was a great night. It really was. And people are loving it. And I think that the best place to start, and got to give the Flyers social media team some credit today. I mean, they were kind of dunking on some old stuff. Very much so. So, first things first. The Flyers threw this one out today. It was early this morning. Here you go. Here are your Flyers. Your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers taking to task. I believe this was Money Puck. All right, here you go. This is less than a month ago. Like, when you think about how incredible this run has been, less than a month ago, Money Puck gave the Flyers a 3.8% chance of winning. 3.8% chance of winning. Less than a month later, they're in the playoffs. 3.8. I mean, let's see. I don't think I can. Okay, good. Yes, I can. I can zoom on this. I want you to just take a look. Oh, for God's sake. Hold on. Let's do this. Here we go. Through the power of technology. All right, let's go to here. Now I should be able to zoom. There we go. I want you to take a look at some of the teams that were involved in this. All right. So less than a month ago, the Detroit Red Wings had a 67% chance of making the playoffs. 67% chance. They failed to qualify. Your Flyers, right down here, 3.8% chance. Look at the Islanders. 75% chance to make the playoffs. They didn't get in. 78%. Look at Columbus. 70.1% chance of getting in. They didn't get in. Why didn't either of those teams get in? Because of your Flyers. Because of what the Flyers were able to accomplish down the stretch. It was a truly incredible performance. We can't overstate. I mean, or maybe we could. And we can't understate, but we kind of could, I guess, if you're stupid. The importance of this playoff run to fans. And by the way, I'm talking about the fans and the comments are flooded right now on YouTube especially. You can get in the conversation at the Russ Joy Show YouTube channel. If you're over on the Joy Media account, that's fine too. You can comment there. You just won't be interacting with as many people. If you're on Facebook or X, you can comment as well. But like, this means a lot to a lot of people. And I'm going to be all around and all over the place today. So don't expect me to go on a straight line path. I want to show you something that it was one of the first things I saw when I woke up this morning. It was a person, it was MVP Jeff Hoffman over on Twitter. And so I'm going to read this to you because I think this anecdote goes a long way in explaining why this meant so much to people. And it's beyond just, oh, cool, the Flyers are back in the playoffs. So here you go. We're going to go over to this person on Twitter, at MVP Jeff Hoffman. Tweets out, not to get emotional on the timeline tonight, but this game tonight meant a lot for me. My cousin passed from esophageal cancer back in December. Tonight I decided to bring him with me to the game. He was such a huge Flyers fan and an overall hockey guy. You can see the picture here. After the Vladar save, I was jumping up and down, truly excited. It didn't hit me until I looked around the arena and felt the joy of everyone in there. That's what hit the most, that he wasn't able to experience this all. But in a weird way, I feel like he was there in the arena. It all hit me, and I just kind of let the tears go down. My girlfriend and I had the same reaction, and we sat there letting the emotions hit. Some other fans came up, and we hugged it out, embracing the moment. No one will ever convince me sports isn't moving or things aren't bigger than it. To me, tonight, it was bigger than hockey. I think it's a really cool story. I genuinely do. I think it's really neat. I also got a DM on, I want to make sure, was it on Instagram or was it on Twitter? Because I want to share it, although I'll keep the person anonymous. No, it was on Twitter. I got it. So there's a guy who lives out in Gettysburg, and at the beginning of the season, he brought his son to an early season Flyers game. I think he said his mom was in Downingtown. And so they made the drive out from Gettysburg right after the kid got out of school to get into Philly, come up and say hi to the Snow the Goalie crew. He DMs me last night. Hey man, I don't know if you remember me, but we met on opening night. We were the family from Gettysburg. My son got to meet you. The kid watched all 82. And when Vladar, made that save, he was crying from emotion. When I put him to bed, I said, don't expect anything, bud. Playoffs are a different beast. He said, Dad, it doesn't matter. We made it. I mean, that's kind of pulls at your heartstrings a little bit, doesn't it? And I think we also need to acknowledge something. You know, if you're like me and you grew up watching the 90s and early 2000s teams, there were a lot of really good years. And we definitely took for granted what it was like to be a playoff contender, a Stanley Cup contender year in and year out. And some years were better than others, and some definitely had higher expectations than others. We took it for granted. And when you look at what this past decade or so has been, the last time the team made the playoffs was that COVID bubble, which I don't really count because there were no fans in attendance. It didn't happen here in Philadelphia. So for my money, it was the quote-unquote playoffs, but it's not real. It's been almost 8 years since the Flyers have taken the ice at the Xfinity Mobile Arena in front of live fans. And that's going to hit different. There's an entire, it seems silly, but there's an entire generation that have not gotten to experience that. I've got 4 kids. Only 2 of them were alive the last time the Flyers played a playoff game in front of people. One of them was 2, and one of them had just been born. They now get to experience the euphoria of playoff hockey. My 5-year-old and my 3-year-old have been along for the ride, and they've been watching every game, and they've been celebrating every goal with the same kind of elation as watching the Phillies hit a home run in the playoffs. This meant something. And if you happen to be one of those fans out there who only cares about hockey, and there are some, I think the people who only care about one sport, man, you're really shutting yourself off to a good emotional lift in the different seasons, but God bless you if you are. If the only thing that you care about in Philly sports is the Flyers, And this one's for you. It's a great moment for you. If you're somebody like me who supports, the 4 big ones plus the Union, it's still a really big accomplishment. I went on 97.5 this morning at 11, and I noted on the show to Mark's Embrace that we've done Snow the Goalie for 8 years. It's the first time in 8 years that Ant and I are going to be down there, of course with Bundy, but Ant and I have been the two rocking it for 8 years. First time that we're going to get to cover a playoff series together in 8 years of doing that show. It's a lot of fun. And I noted on the radio, and then some jackass in the comments got in his feelings because he's, probably got to. Never mind. We're not gonna paint a descriptive image of what that guy's probably doing today. But I noted that's a lot of nights. This isn't my job. Talking into a microphone is not my job. Going down and covering Flyers games isn't my job. It's a fun side hustle. Nice, cool opportunity. But it's a lot of nights away from home. It's a lot of nights away from my family. And some jackass in the Fanatic comments was like, oh, nobody's asking you to do it. You don't have to do it. It's true. I choose to do it. But it doesn't change. It doesn't change the impact of that. It doesn't change those nights that my wife and kids don't have me around. And so it's a cool feeling to make it feel like it's worth it. And that's just for some jamoke who talks into a microphone and goes down and does the home games. Now you take into account the equipment people, the coaches, the players themselves, their families. You want to extend it to the media and to the stadium workers. It's one thing when you go and you're watching a team that feels directionless, rudderless, as if it is devoid of talent. And it's another thing when you go down and you watch everything come together the way that it did against the Hurricanes. And you watch a team show true resiliency, and a youth movement ends up being why you won that game. And so we'll get to that in a second, but I want to go out to the comments because I see a lot of people saying a lot of things, and I want to make sure. Today is like a bonus episode. I put the schedule out. I didn't listen to Russ Joy Show episode on Tuesday because I didn't know if they were going to win last night. I thought they would, but I didn't know. So now we're doing an extra episode, so that means we'll be doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. We're not doing a Thursday show, I don't think, unless something crazy happens. I don't think we will. So four days of the Russ Joy Show. And we got Press Row Show tonight, and we got Chickies and Pete's 6 o'clock on Wednesday night in Warrington doing Snow the Goalie Radio, which you should come out to. Talk some puck. Celebrate the regular season that was and the playoffs that are yet to be. Gimzak over on YouTube says, is it great to be alive on a Tuesday morning or what? CM Punk's going to show up. Chris Freed says 10 shootout wins this season. No other team has more than 7. That's the difference between making the playoffs and missing it. Yep. And by the way, to that end, because the Flyers happen to use the rules to their advantage, the Flyers happen to have a lot of success in overtime and shootouts this year. I just want to take an opportunity. I'm going to go off the rails. We'll come back to the comments in a second. I just want to point out, I get that it sucks when your team misses the playoffs. I get it. We've all been here. We've been living here for a while. But there is an increasing number of people whining, crying, bitching, complaining. And so I'm just going to take you really quickly out to something I saw yesterday, and it made me feel nauseous. Let's go out to this. This is from an account called Tom Wilson is the GOAT. Okay, so not great, but okay. Tom Wilson is the GOAT. This was yesterday morning. This is before the Flyers even qualified.
The Islanders, Capitals, and Devils all have more win than the Penguins and Flyers, but are going to miss the playoffs because they didn't get enough loser points.
Okay, Tom Wilson is the GOAT. Fair point. The Islanders, Capitals, and Devils all did have more wins. But that's not why they're missing the playoffs. They're not missing the playoffs because they didn't get more loser points. It's because they failed to get more points, period. Now, if you don't like how the system works, You don't need to subscribe to it. You can talk to your senator, your state representative, your congressperson, and have them pitch it to Gary Bettman, or have them talk to the owner of your team, and you can have a conversation about what's fair and what's equitable and what's not. But in the meantime, kindly shut the fuck up, okay? Everybody's got to play by the same rules. A win is worth 2, an overtime loss or shootout is worth 1. That's it. You want to go to a 3-2-1 system? I might actually even side with you. I could absolutely envision a scenario where you say, you know what? Regulation win, 3 points. Overtime shootout loss, 2 points. Overtime shootout loss, 1 point. I can get there with you. I don't actually think that's a terrible idea at all. But guess what? I'm not the commissioner. I'm not an owner. And if you're offended by owner, I'm not a governor of a team, okay? I'm not. I'm just some guy. But everybody plays the same game with the same rules and the same point system. This notion that it's unfair to the Capitals and the Islanders and the Devils that the Penguins and the Flyers are in, sorry. There's always next year, maybe. I think the whole argument is ridiculous. If you don't like how this worked out, perhaps it makes sense to remind your team that had they been able to play to a few ties, get to a couple of shootouts, perhaps they would have earned the requisite number of points to make the playoffs. Again, I'm not going to tell you that the Flyers, on balance, were a better team than each of the aforementioned squads, although I will say, this Flyers team has been an absolute unit. They've been a runaway train. They've been a van going downhill with the brake lines cut. This Flyers team is one that no one wants to run into in the playoffs. And poor Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang and their whole squad. And Kevin Hayes, poor Kevin Hayes. He's going to have to go head-to-head with these Philadelphia Flyers. I don't know about you. I'm kind of hoping Sean Couturier puts Kevin Hayes through the glass. Into the bench. Let's dump him in the bench. Okay? I don't want Kevin Hayes to get hurt. But after thieving money from this team, I mean, did Kevin Hayes ever live up to that contract? No. Was Chuck Fletcher a total dipshit for giving it to him? Indeed he was. Do I fault Kevin Hayes for signing that contract? I do not. But this is a great time to be a Flyers fan. All right, let's go out to the comments. Going back out. Chris Freed asks, will there be a Snow the Goalie episode after each playoff game? I don't know, but I don't think so. So Ant, to my knowledge, is going to be going out and covering the first 2 games in Pittsburgh. I might do my show. I don't know if there will be a Snow the Goalie. And I think Bundy might end up out there for game 1 as well. I'm not positive. I'll let you guys know. We'll tell you all about it when we know. GMJ9930 says, thank you yet again, Dan Vladar, MVP of the team for sure. No doubt. 100%. Donald Fletcher's here. Says, good afternoon, Russ. Hello, Donald. Thank you for being here. Let's see. Wyatt's Hot Takes, who's got the half Talkit, half Osama bin Laden avatar. You might have to change it now. Says, I was worried Russ wouldn't go live today. Oh, no, we're live. We're live. We're having fun. Seth Pamelia says, the Flyers are a wagon. Indeed. B. Condor says, doesn't feel real. It is. It is. Frankly Amazing 6754 says, I've been watching Flyers content since the game ended and a few hours of sleep. You know what? Maybe get a little bit of rest and then come back to the Press Row Show tonight at 6:30 over on the Snow the Goalie channel. Chris Smack says, Russ, the YouTube picture is cloudy. I don't know. Get better internet. I don't know. Chris asks why you're not wearing orange and black. I don't know. Well, I was wearing this because I was going out doing a little bit of cardio this morning. Yeah, how about that? Let's see. Nick Abe says, it's crazy we made the playoffs with 0 30-goal scorers. Let's actually take a look really quickly at the Flyers team leaders this season. All right, so their leading goal scorer on the season was Owen Tippett with 28. Travis Konechny had 27. Zegras had 26. Michkov, 19. Dvorak and Cates both had 18. Bobby Brink, who only played 55 games here, 13 goals. Foerster, who was out for much of the season, had 13 goals in 28 games. Pretty damn good. Couturier with 12, Sanheim with 10. Grundstrom with 9, Drysdale with 8. Barkey, 5 in 42 games. And how about young Porter Martone, 3 goals in 8 games? Not bad. Not bad at all. That extrapolates out to roughly a 30-goal scorer as a teenager. Good job, Porter Martone. Tony Escargot is here, has entered the chat. And by the way, Tony Escargot, I saw earlier today, claimed to have sent cannoli to Rick Tocchet. Did anyone think at the beginning of the season that Tony Escargot would be sending cannoli to Rick Tocchet by the end of the season? I think not. Weiland is here. Says, yo, I wonder if Martone plays tonight. I think he does. I think he will. They have 5 call-ups that are going to be in the lineup tonight, including Bonk. Bonk is going to make his debut, which is kind of cool. Kolosov, I'm assuming, is going to back up Ersson. They did not say anything about Jack Berglund playing tonight. There was no mention of Jiricek, although I would think that Jiricek's going to be in the lineup tonight. I'd be kind of surprised if he wasn't. He was recalled already, so I have to imagine that he'll be in the lineup. Let's get him on the power play. Put some thoughts in the back of the mind of the Flyers coaching staff going into the playoffs. Cryptic Cowboy says, nice that some of the kids get a shot to play tonight. Correct. Vacant Alleyways says, I'm so happy I could cry. Let those tears out. There's nothing wrong with that. Tony Louie says, we're about to retire Crosby and force Schittsburg into bankruptcy number 3. Yeah, but this time Ed Snyder's not going to bail them out. Look up the history of the Penguins being saved twice. Seth Pamilia noting about Escargot. You get a cannoli, and you get a cannoli, and you get a cannoli. All right, let's see. Reed DeFord says, feed me Crosby's soul. Good God. You know, the funny thing is, we were talking at the beginning of the season, and I brought up to Bundy. So we're at Chickies and Pizza Morrington on Wednesday night, and I'm pretty sure that's where we did the first Snow the Goalie radio of the year. And at that show, I asked Bundy about Crosby. And I said, hey, you know, since this rivalry is largely dead, the vitriol for Crosby seems to have kind of gone away. Is that just because people watch Crosby and they think to themselves, he's going to go down as an all-time great, and maybe people just like have appreciation for him? And Bundy was like, yeah, that's pretty much what I see. Well, make no mistake about it. All that respect that Crosby's been getting from the Philly fans, yeah, no, he's going to get it. And there's now 8 years nearly of playoff built-up frustration from missing the playoffs and not having home games in Philadelphia. Yeah, they're going to let Sidney Crosby hear it. Let's see. Jeff Rose asks, Russ, were you asked by anyone on 97.5 to come on the show anytime during the regular season other than the past week? No, I was not. I talked to Marks about this like probably a month and a half ago. But at that point, the Flyers were like very much out of it. And I went into a little bit more detail on this on Monday's show. I don't necessarily fault the radio hosts for not paying a lot of attention to the Flyers when they were out of it. The fault that I have is for the ones who mocked the Flyer fans for supporting their team and for liking hockey. I thought that was a bridge too far. But yeah, now I've gone on with Marks and Brace once last week, once this week. We'll see if it continues. I don't know. This mustache, it intimidates many people. Let's see. Fawcett says Tocchet was near in tears at the end of that game. And I think that's actually a good thing for everyone to see in case you have missed this moment. But again, I give the Flyers social media team a lot of credit. I give them a ton of credit because they've done a very good job since last night. I want you to hear from Rick Tocchet. And you want to talk about the guy being on the brink of tears? You can tell how much this meant to him and how much this meant to that coaching staff and how much it meant to the guys in the locker room. Let's go out to Rick Tocchet post-game. Flyers take down the Hurricanes. And here is the head coach addressing his group.
Guys, right from training camp, right from frickin' training camp, you guys believe, right? Nobody else believed but yourself. You guys deserve this, and we're not done yet. We're not done. Every single guy, even the guys that didn't play, were in this for it. Getting emotional, but get the mask because I'm going to cry here for a second. Great job.
It means something. I said this a few weeks ago. The first time that the Flyers finally put out Tocchet in the locker room, and they put that video out, I said this is the kind of shit they should have been showing all year, especially when they saw the negative vitriolic reaction to a lot of what Tocchet had to say because of the Michkov stuff. They should have been putting this stuff out sooner. You see stuff like that. You see other videos coming out of the locker room. You hear these guys talk about playing for this coach. And they're totally bought in. They'll go to war for this dude. And now it makes sense why Quinn Hughes was as devastated as he was when Tocchet left Vancouver in the offseason. We can all sit out on the outside, right? We can criticize and question a head coach, the deployment of different players, the tactics that they run in a given game. But there's this whole part of it that none of us understand because we don't go in that locker room during intermissions. We're not in these meetings. We don't know how that locker room feels about the head coach. Well, you see it now. You see it plain as day. We'll also note that last night, Sean Couturier handed off the mask. They've been kind of doing the Bernie Parent mask to the MVP of the team and the MVP of the game. And look who Couturier gave it to last night. They gave it to Dan Hilferty. Now, I think that for the most part, fan sentiment around Hilferty is largely positive. There are some people who I don't think totally understand the impact that guy's had behind the scenes in trying to bring back some sort of feeling of what this team once was. The people who used to be affiliated with this organization, guys who played here a decade ago, 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, when they talk about the way that Hilferty has changed things behind the scene and the fact that it feels more like when Snyder was here, certainly more so than when Dave Scott was in charge, that does matter. It does mean something. It might not to a fan. It might not to media. But it certainly matters to players. It certainly matters to the people who work in the building and the people who work at Skate Zone. That family feeling, that family atmosphere, very much so feels back. And it's not like that everywhere. And again, if you think that that's overrated, you could certainly feel that way. But I'll note to you that people take notice. And as players around the league talk, which they do a lot, and as agents talk to front offices, which they do a lot, I tend to think that you're going to see, assuming that this series against the Penguins goes well, I'm not saying win, although I think they could win it. You have a competitive first-round series, I think you're going to start hearing the rumblings and the murmurs that guys who had Philly on their no-movement clause, I think they're going to change it. I think that's how impactful them making the playoffs is going to ultimately be. Let's also go out. This was post-game. The captain, Sean Couturier, talking to his teammates after they qualify for the playoffs.
Way to shut the door after those first 2 goals, and for a great goal. But this goes to Mr. Hilferty. Thank you for everything.
There you go. So here's the awarding of the mask. We can tip it in the back.
I gotta say this. I believed. I swear to God, I believed all along. Did I not say that to you, TK? You guys are amazing. It's going to be a great run, and thank you for all you do for not only this organization, but this entire region. The entire region believes in you, and let's have some fun.
And I will tell you, and I think we'll have Hilferty on Press Row Show tonight. I will give Hilferty this. He did believe. He believed the entire time. And there were times that I looked at him, and I would say to him, on camera, off camera, like, you do realize that this isn't a playoff. You realize it, right? Like in January, I was like, you're aware, right? And he will always admit to you that he wears the fan hat. And he would rather watch the team compete and try to make the playoffs, than end up in the lottery. And guess what? He was right. This team locked in. They got the job done. All right, let's go out to some more comments here. DeGrinch says, now we get to see Jiricek on the power play tonight. I'm pretty sure he'll play. I hope he'll play. I actually want to see him get a power play opportunity. The funniest shit ever would be Jiricek gets out there on one of the power play units tonight, starts bombing from the blue line, and gets a power play goal just from being a stud. Just bombs away at the net. And then you go, oh, that's interesting. That's something to kind of file away in the back of your mind for the playoffs. Let's see. Cryptic Cowboy says, I was so happy last night that I ate a whole box of Hot Tuckets. Allison's here. Hello, Allison. Welcome in. There was a comment about Mark Madden, the radio host out in Pittsburgh, and Gritty123 says he's a loser. He's a miserable guy. He's like the size of 6 guys, but he's also a miserable guy. If you add all 6 of the people that he ate, they're all miserable. Jeff Rose says, let's not forget to thank Rod the Bod for help in the shootout. Let's thank him for playing with a depleted lineup last night. He sat 5 of his most impactful players. We gotta be fair here. Flyers earned that win last night, but let's also not forget, Carolina did not roll a full squad last night. We haven't even talked about the game. We'll get there in a minute. Ed H68 BYB says Penguins going down. I think it's possible. Z2 Bro says his blood pressure was so high last night watching the game. I caught myself, I typically try to be very objective, and I stand up there at the Press Row Show area, and the Flyers score a goal, I kind of get a little fist pump, right? There were sounds. My body was involuntarily making sounds in the third period last night when it looked like Carolina was going to break through. I'm just going, ah! I looked at intern, and I was like, yeah, dude, I don't even know what's happening. I've lost control of my bodily functions and my sounds. That third period was nervy. Let's see. Peanut Energy asks, where's Ford today? Well, I've gone through all these comments. I haven't seen Ford yet, but he might be here. I don't know. We'll see. Let's see. Says the boys must have had fun last night because the Flyers called up half the AHL roster. It's going to be a lot of fun. Tonight's game is going to be cool for those guys, especially, like I said, Oliver Bonk is going to make his NHL debut. Wyland Ernst, quote, I'm sick and tired of hearing about what a great hockey team the Penguins have. Screw them. This is your time. Now go out there and take it. I don't know who said that, but I like it. Jim Grasso says, hi, Russ. Went to Buc-ee's for the first time last week. Flyers are in the playoffs. What a week. Jim Grasso, let me know which Buc-ee's you went to. And we will note that means that good old Bucky here brought some good luck to you. So, thing of beauty. All right, let's see. I got to fly through some comments here. We got a lot of good stuff. Marco Mazzola says, okay, tank now. Peanut Energy says Kevin Hayes' fingerprints will be all over this series. Could be. Allison says, my 7-year-old didn't understand the playoffs, but she saw how excited we all are, and now she's telling everyone, because they're down in Texas, that the Flyers won the playoffs. You know what? Let her tell them whatever she wants, Wyland says, tell Hayes. Black and yellow makes him look fat. Oh, man. Nick Abe says Carolina and Tampa are by far the best teams in the East. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens in the playoffs, but I tend to think it's gonna be something. Let me see. We got people looking for Ford. Havokin says, Russ, for the last couple of seasons, they seem to make it to the last game of the season needing a win and would just fall short. Happy they're back in. I think you have to feel good about it. Vacant Alleyway says, Flyers are my number 1 team. The elation is so real. Correct. Let me jump around here. We're seeing happy Russ is a good Russ. Well, thank you. Steven says, Russ listened to me on X. I told him to do the show and not say no. Steven, this is for you. It's all for you. Let's see. Burn Fireman says, I think you need to rock the pink shirt to keep the winning streak going. Great seeing you guys in JR last night. Yeah, we had Jeremy Roenick on, first intermission last night. You can go check that out. And I think Amedeo might have already clipped that up separately. I don't know if that's separate on the YouTube account, but you can go check it out. It was a lot of fun. He was awesome to have on the show. Let's see. I'm going to jump around because I see a lot of the same people, and I don't want to jump over everybody's comments here. But I was about 25 minutes behind on the comments from what I saw. Shane says, I want Porter in a legit scrap this series. Let's see what the kid is made of. I think Martone's going to step up. You know what I want? So by the way, Jay Grebby says Russell and Russettes. LFG. Yes. Here's what, this is funny too. Sorry. Lucas Martin. Columbus and Washington game tonight is just going to be 60 minutes of passing drills. Ovi cracking a beer halfway through the first. He's going to pull a Nick Castellanos. Don says the two most underrated players this year, Sanheim and Drysdale. Sanheim has very much put himself on that deserving of the Olympics level, and Drysdale's had a really strong season, no doubt. Jeff DeCaro calls out Michkov, says Michkov's going to come up big this series market. I love that. I do. I love that idea. Flyer Dude says Flyers passed on Caulfield not once but twice. Rocket Award winner tonight? Could be. I don't want to live in the negativity. The Caulfield thing had me upset that night, and I'm still upset. Let's see. Greg DeCruz says, watching from Costa Rica, the orange and black is back, baby. Correct. Okay. If I skipped over, if I didn't get to you, if you dropped a comment and I didn't get to it, if I haven't gotten to any of your comments yet, then do me a favor, drop your comment back in, and I'll try to get to you here as we go. DRF says, give the Penguins bad flashbacks by going back to the Dupe goal song. That would be fun. That actually would be pretty fun. Now, there was something I was going to talk about here a little bit ago, and I totally forgot. Where's this at? Linda Joseph says, the Russ Joy Show bump for Michkov is real. Yeah, I had the one show where I called out Michkov's underperformance late in the season. And he's just gone on to, show me why I was right to believe in him all this time. One thing that we have to talk about is what actually happened in the game last night. And this is why I think, more than anything, we should all feel pretty damn good about this team. Okay? If I told you at the beginning of the year that the Flyers were going to make the playoffs, and I wouldn't be mad about it. Because remember, in the beginning of the year, I said, best thing for this team would be add one more stud in the draft, Martone, Michkov, and this third guy. Who's the third man? It became very clear early on, Vladar was not going to let this be a bad team. It became clear around the Olympic break, this team might have something. It became incredibly clear during March, this team's on a heater, and it was clear as day in April. Not only is this team getting hot, but literally every other team around them is falling off a cliff. Now, last night's game was gigantic. And it was gigantic because of who made it in. Who made it into the score sheet, onto the score sheet. We'll talk about it. Let's dive in. What's this? Hold on. Steven sent a super chat. Thank you, Steven. Says I tagged you something on Twitter. All right, hold on. Let me go over to Twitter. Let me see what I can find. Hold on. All right, here you go. Oh, cool. Okay, so Charlie O'Connor just put out the team awards. We can go there first. We'll go there, and then we'll talk about the game last night. We're almost 40 minutes in, and we haven't talked about the game in any meaningful way. That's fine. This is the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You knew that because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. All right, so they typically do an awards ceremony the day before before one of the final games. It was supposed to be last night, and then the Flyers postponed it because they wanted the guys to focus in on the game. Very smart call. They typically would have done this tonight, but they decided not to do the ceremony, so they just announced it through a press release. The Bobby Clark Trophy for the team MVP goes to Dan Vladar. Roaring round of applause for Dan Vladar. Well deserved. The Ashby Trophy for Best Defenseman goes to Travis Sanheim. Hard to argue. Although I think you could make a case that Drysdale deserved some serious consideration there. The Lindbergh Trophy for Most Improved, Jamie Drysdale. I think that's totally fair. Community Leadership Award goes to Garnet Hathaway. This dude does so much in the community. That's well earned. Gene Hart Award from the fan club. They gave it to Sanheim. I don't know what goes into that, but that's cool. And then the final one for the class guy also goes to Vladar. And this is a media award. So, listen, this I think is all to be expected. Oh, here we go. And Zegras got the Toyota Cup for most star of the game points. You know who wasn't a star of the game last night? Dan Vladar. Didn't get to be one of the 3 stars, which we found out who picked the stars last night. It was not Jackie Spiegel. She did not let history repeat itself another time. But there's the person who picked the stars. I think we are in conversations with. I think San Filippo is going to try to bring that person on pregame for the Press Row Show tonight to answer and atone for their sins. But I do want to talk about last night's game before we head out of here. I mean, listen, if you're here and you're watching this show that wasn't even announced, chances are you watched the game last night. But we got to talk about what happened because it to me is the story of the season, and it's the story of why this team feels so different from every other team the past decade. This is not a patchwork team. This is not a Chuck Fletcher special. There's a hole in the dam, and Chuck Fletcher is going out and rolling up toilet paper and then grabbing some extra-sized Band-Aids and trying to shove it into the side of the dam and just hope that it holds. This team is being built the right way. Now, it might not have as many high-end prospects, like elite-level prospects, as I would want to see out of a rebuild, and the returns on Jetlachenko right now are very much unknown. We did get the word yesterday Jack Nesbitt is going to go from playing junior to playing for Michigan next season, which I think is a massive, massive development for Nesbitt in his development and for the Flyers. Actually, let's do a side quest here for a second. Jack Nesbitt going to Michigan. Why does it matter? Nesbitt's been on fire in the playoffs for his team. I think he's up to, is it 5 goals in 6 games? I'll see if I can find it here real quick. He has been on a tear in the OHL playoffs, which is fantastic. But junior's junior. And how much weight you put into the performance of a guy playing junior hockey really is up to you. One place that you definitely know the competition's going to be high, the players are older, more mature, is NCAA hockey. And we saw what happened this past year. Porter Martone playing at Michigan State. And then after Martone got brought to the Flyers, he was effusive in his praise of Michigan State and everything that they did to help him develop as a person, as a player, in the weight room, getting mentally prepped for what the rigors of a NHL season would end up feeling like, looking like. So now Nesbitt is going to finish out his season in the OHL, and then next year is going to go to Michigan and play for the Wolverines, playing Big Ten hockey. If you're a Flyers fan, it's great news. Big Ten Network's available. You're going to be able to see a lot more Jack Nesbitt than you were able to this year, and it's going to be a lot easier to find his games. And you're now putting him into a team and a school that have plenty of resources. And in theory, Nesbitt should have a pretty big leap, I would expect, from playing in junior to playing in college. I think it's going to be a big leap forward. And as I have been on this show many times saying, I think there's a lot to like about Jack Nesbitt. I think that Nesbitt is going to be an NHL player. Now, I get it. He was the second first-round pick that they had, right? They traded 2 firsts last year to move up to take him. You know, did they want Roger McQueen, the guy that I tried to manifest the Flyers getting, who ended up at Providence? Maybe. But Nesbitt, to me, massive human being, big center, not afraid to shoot the puck, not afraid to score the puck. You're going to give him a year of college. Maybe it's 2 years of college. But again, I think that's way better for his development. Good stuff. Oh, and by the way, Jack Berglund? Berglund had the overtime or the shootout or whatever winner the other night for the Phantoms. I don't think he's playing tonight, but Berglund could potentially be with the Phantoms next year. He could try to make the Flyers out of camp, or they could loan him back to Sweden next season, whatever. But it feels like the pieces that are tangentially affiliated with the team, the prospects that are kind of trying to find their way to the big club, we're starting to find a lot of positive advances and positive steps being taken forward by those guys, which gives you another bit of boost of confidence that the guys that are getting drafted might, in fact, be the right guys. And we'll find out. I mean, it's hard to know. Hard to know how Junior is going to, develop into being, potentially an AHL player. Or somebody goes to college, and then, will they go from college to straight to the NHL the same way that Martone did? All of it remains to be seen. But it feels like there's a lot of positives. Now, back to the game from last night, real quick. They played scared for 28 minutes. The whole first period, I thought the Flyers played afraid. First 8 minutes of the second period, I thought they played scared. And then it all changed. Everything broke. Because Denver Barkey, who was kind of in and out of the lineup, and Denver Barkey, who we are big believers in, Denver Barkey sets up Matvei Michkov to cut the lead to 1. At that point, the building started shaking. I felt the floor beneath my feet shaking. And there was a release of emotion in that moment. Because people were getting worried. Like, oh my God, like this, you can't end up with no points, right? You start to catastrophize everything. Then Martone does what Martone has been incredible at doing. He sets up Zegras with a wonderful pass. Great vision, excellent execution. And Zegras finishes with calm and poise and composure. And they tie the game, and the whole building starts shaking again. Now, the third period was nervy. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you it wasn't. The third period was scary, and overtime, there were some moments in overtime that I thought, oh shit, like you're only going to get one. And then you go to the shootout, and I thought that it was curious to have Zegras shoot first, but I guess the idea was try to go up 1-0 or go up a goal and put all the pressure on Carolina. Maybe that was the thought. You watch Zegras not convert, and Michkov not convert, and Konechny not convert, and then Tyson Foerster, the guy who was ruled out for the rest of the season, works his ass off to get back in the lineup. He's the one who converts, and then it all comes down to Dan Vladar, and Vladar gets it done at the very end. Goes 4 for 4 in save opportunities in the shootout. And that, my friends, is fantastic. So, as I said at the top of the show, this is very much a cool moment for the players and the coaches and the organization. But I would argue that this is the most impactful thing and the coolest thing for the fans who have stuck with this team year in and year out. And they've now been awarded with, or rewarded with, a playoff series against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So, I am going to be back tonight. I will be back tonight on the Press Row Show with Anthony and Bundy and intern Andrew. And I think Dan Hilferty might be joining us, and we'll see if anybody else is going to hop on the show as well. So you can go check that out on the Snow the Goalie channel over on YouTube, 6:30 start. And then I'll be back here tomorrow morning on the Russ Joy Show at 10 a.m. And then I got a work trip at the end of the week, so I'll have to figure out what Friday's timing is going to look like. But I'll be back on Wednesday morning with the Russ Joy Show, and then, of course, Snow the Goalie Radio at Chickies and Pete's at 6 o'clock in Warrington, Pennsylvania on Wednesday night. So a lot more puck to talk about. So anyway, big thank you to everybody who joined me live here on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Thank you to everybody who listens to the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get podcasts. Until later tonight and then tomorrow morning, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. Flyers did it, guys. Let's go enjoy Game 82 tonight with absolutely nothing to worry about. Thanks for joining me on the Russ Joy Show.